This snare here is made out of zebra. All right, I'm here with my buddy Sahan Jayasuriya. We're gonna buy a snare drum for $50. If I can't get it to sound good in like 15 minutes, then he gets to throw me into a cannon, and the cannon gets to throw me into the center of the sun. Here we are at the snare rack at the music go around with our $50. It's a Premier snare made in jolly old England.
What year is it from, roughly?
I don't know. This is an Olympic one, so this would have been a student model. I'm going to guess that it's probably 70s.
So this is essentially like the Premier equivalent of an acrylite, more or less?
Yeah. Now, here's the thing about these acrylites is now these things are going for $200-$300 plus.
You and me both remember a time when you could get these for $50 clean with the case.
All day long.
Yeah. You and me came, we met almost 15 years ago, and at the time, what is referred to now, and I mean, it was referred to back then as vintage drums, but when you think of vintage drums now, the things that are, selling for anywhere between 12 and 3 to 4 or 5 grand,
yeah.
Old Rogers, old Slingerland, old Ludwig, Camco, all that stuff was pretty affordable. And I mean, by comparison today, our taste were those things. But I was thinking about this yesterday. I think it was our taste because it was within reach for us financially. Yeah. So like you and I both got old Ludwig kits, $300
to $190 my first old Ludwig kit from the 60s.
And like that was just the going rate for those things. And that, like we said, like acrylites were $50, Superphonics were maybe a little more like 200.
Even $150 for a long time. Supers were $150.
So the entire thing was that we were just interested in vintage drums, and it just so happened that we could afford them.
So that's why this is even more important now, is being able to get a drum for $50 or a kit for a couple $100 that is well built, sounds cool with good heads on it. So
it might not seem like it right now. We're gonna make this thing sound real good, and by we, I mean him.
I got 15 minutes to make this freaking snare drum sound good. Here we go. Start the timer.
We're going to start the timer. You have 15 minutes to make this sound as good or better than the intro to Two Princes by the Spin Doctors. Ready? And go.
Oh, we've already run into our first issue here. This freaking thing doesn't even have normal tension rods on it. It has these little things called slotted tension rods, and the only way I'm going to get them off is with a flathead screwdriver.
Now, no, Premier didn't do that. Was a Sonar thing.
Premier did this too. This isn't just a Sonar.
I thought it was a Sonar thing, which is those drums sound good, but that made me mad.
I got an Evans pack here. This is the EC Reverse Snare tune-up kit.
Oh wow! So how much are those?
I don't know. It looks like I was hoping there was a pizza in here. There's no pizza.
So just so everyone knows, what is the head that you're replacing? There was a Evans G1 on there, and you're replacing it with what?
Yeah, so I have an Evans EC Reverse here, which is going to have more dampening. It's going to be more of a rock tone than sort of a funk tone.
All right, and the dampening is probably going to do a pretty decent job of kind of taming some of those, overtones that you get with a steel snare. Because that's what this is. I don't know if we mentioned it at the store. This is 100% just steel shell snare drum, right?
Yeah, but the difference between this and sort of the cheap Chinese drums is there's only 1 point of tension per lug. Instead of having 2 screws per lug in this thing, you have 1. And so less holes in the shell means that the shell is able to resonate a little better.
Because I think a lot of us, who grew up buying, entry-level kits, they always came with just that sort of nondescript steel shell snare drum with the, what do you want to call it? This has the sort of like horizontal lines going across it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, like a beaded drum?
But no, they're not beads because they almost look like indentations into the shell. So it's not like a bead would be like on like an acrylite or something.
So technically, yeah, if we're talking about beads, the acrylite, the Superphonic, they all have a big lump in the center. But on the cheaper Chinese drums, I think what they did is to create shell, a stronger shell, they have these little reverse beads, kind of like what you'll see on the old Slingerlands.
So I didn't realize those were actually beads. I thought they were just like part of the shell construction. The more you know.
If you go to Mardi Gras and you show off your big
407, he's already got the top hat on. You remember your cat that you had?
Dude, all right, I had this cat named Whiskers when I was a kid, and this stupid freaking cat my mom got it for free out of the paper. And
free cat.
Now, the reason this cat was free is because the mother or the father cat was for sure feral. Let me tell you right now, that was an issue. Listen, I didn't change nothing but this top head over here. The bottom head is original. Look at that puppy.
Let me see it. I can't. Yeah, let me see it. Ooh, Everplay Extra, made in England. Wow.
What's cool here is this does sound good, and what I like about these old drums is they come with way less wires on the snare drum.
Which is something that I only recently was like hip to because of you. I think in like the last probably 2 years, you put, I think 20 strand, or maybe
there was a time when I was always using, it was about 10 years ago, I was always using 12 strand wires.
Right. And I think at the time, what did I have on my
you had 42 strands. You had big boys.
I had a 42 strand set of snares on my like the 6.5 by 14 Superphonic. And my mentality was like, oh yeah, it's like a big drum, bunch of snares, gets you tons of sensitivity and blah blah blah. And you're like, actually, it's the reverse of what you think. The fewer snares, the more sensitivity. It's like, you're full of it. And you put 12 strand snares on that snare drum, and like most people who have those are like, it sounds like the Zeppelin snare. And it really does.
And the reason why is that you're always going to have that snare sound, that high fizzy sound.
Right.
But when you have less wires on a drum, you allow the body of the drum to come through. You can always add more of that snare bottom mic when you're in a studio.
Totally.
You can't take away all the fizzy fizz of a 42 strand set of wires.
Right. And it's just like, for years I had it like that, and I put those 12 strand snares on it. It sounds great. And for no other reason, just because I brought up John Bonham, I want to say hi to Terry Keating.
Terry Keating, Bonzolium. All right, now we're going to change out the bottom head and these snare wires. Time, I'm done.
Okay, we are at... All right, let's show it to the camera. It's
What's
backwards. 1339.95.
1339, folks. That's under 15, so I'm not getting fired out of a cannon into the sun.
Today,
not today. Maybe next time.
Maybe tomorrow.
All right, now let's get it back in the studio. We're gonna give it a smack. Several weeks later, here we are.
Hello, we're back.
We're back.
Several weeks later, not in the park anymore.
No, thank God we're in a nice little apartment.
Oh boy.
I recorded some stuff. We're gonna take a look now, and I'm gonna see what Sahan thinks of this freaking drum. What do we think of the drum?
The first thing I thought is that it doesn't sound like a 5 and it doesn't sound like a 6.
There's something about this where there's, steel generally, when we think of those drums, has this sort of trashy quality to it, right? There's such a refined sound to this Premier thing that I've never heard with any other steel drum. And it's $50 frickin'.
It's $50.
Even though drums like this you can find for $50, $60, $100 all day long, it feels like a $300 or $400 or $500 drum. It really does.
Sounds
feel
great.
Nice, it sounds great.
Sounds great.
London's calling. It's an English-made drum. So we heard the drum all by itself. Sounds great.
Sounds awesome on the phone. Yeah.
Let's hear it with some music. Now, what I find interesting there personally is that I'm laying into the drum more, and so you do get a little bit of the brash of a steel drum, but it's so pleasant.
It's a pleasant drum to beat up. Some drums, they feel good when you beat them up, but like sonically, they kind of choke out almost like that. This sounds good when you beat it up. Hearing it with, a full mix, or just with, more music, I guess, it almost kind of, I don't want to say it sounds like brass, but it almost does like a similar thing where
because it's musical,
where it sits right. It's just more of a musical drum, whereas and there's plenty of other drums that I love, and those drums aren't this drum and vice versa. Oh wow, it's just not even for the price, it's just a very good drum.
It is.
That's all it is.
Now, if you frickin' ding-dongs go out and make this drum expensive, what am I gonna do?
He's gonna fire you out of a cannon.
We already did that bit.
Directly into the sun.
We did that bit. Now, we're gonna take a quick minute to show you another Premier drum.
Oh, a surprise guest.
We have a surprise guest. I found this drum, and I thought it was gonna be something real nice.
You ordered it thinking it was like, you're gonna get in.
I really thought I was getting a good deal on a good drum. Turns out, it wasn't. I thought it was a nice black lacquer. It's wine red, people. This is the color of drum sets that parents buy their children, and children hate the drums. Very good color.
The color of youth.
Right. So then I get this thing, and it's a Premier drum, $100.
It's England made.
England made. So I thought it has to be great. This thing is made out of the same Philippine mahogany that they used to make Yamaha stage customs of the time. Now, the only difference is this has one ply of eucalyptus.
Oh, boy.
So,
Koala Custom.
Koala Custom. Here we are. Check out the premier Koala Custom.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
All right, what do you think of that thing?
So how old is this? Is it like 90s, 2000s, early 2000s?
I think it'd be early 90s or mid 90s, maybe.
It's like a Cabria. Is that what it was?
So this was called. I consulted the Premier Facebook group, and
wow, I didn't know.
And some old English guy told me it's a Premier Cabria Mark I.
Okay.
So the first kind of entry level kit that was made to be economical in the 90s by Premier in England. So still built in England.
I mean, honestly, you've said this before in other videos. I'm sure you can link them or maybe put a little thingy.
www.
A big part of any drum sound is heads and tuning, right?
I don't remember which one of the two it is, but it's an Evans heavyweight or a heavyweight dry, which is a really, really thick head. So I'm able to increase the amount of low end and low mids that come out of this drum in this sort of body, which makes this drum sound bigger than it is.
Yeah.
And it does create the same illusion that you get out of the Pioneer, which is a really thin drum, but it has 6 lugs, which makes this thing sound bigger than it is.
It's super open. And that's the thing. Like, this sounds like, again, blind test, I wouldn't say this was a $100 snare drum.
Oh, I would, because I paid $100 for it, and I'm not happy I paid $100. But it's a great drum. I think I'm going to keep it, even though it's wine red and it was, not what I thought it was.
I think it's so great that someone should buy it from me.
Wow.
There it is.
All right, now, I like this at the low tuning, but it does sound a heck of a lot better at the high tuning, so let's look at that real quick.
Let's listen to it high.
Hey.
I am so surprised.
I was too.
Let's talk about how those two different tunings sounded like two completely different drums.
Yes.
The other one sounded like a good drum. It sounded way better than what you paid for sure.
Yeah. This is more versatile.
This is more
because it does a few more different things even with the same heads on.
And I mean, I would love to hear almost like an in-between kind of tuning of those two, but like this thing sounds killer. It sounds like it is deeper than it is.
Yeah. And that's, I think, because that head is so thick. That's got another one of those heavyweights on
You think that's like the big... Yeah.
Premier drums, they sound really good.
Look, I think one of the reasons why you did this video is because there isn't really a lot out there about Premier drums.
No, and I think we have to learn more. So stick around and you're going to find out about 60s Premier drums that are really cool and one of the goofiest snare drums you've ever heard and seen in your life. Good day, mate. It's the wrong country. Welcome back to Baltus's Blue Boppers. That's the name of the show today. Today we're going to look at Premier drums. And the reason why is because these are really special. You don't see them that often in the United States. And they are really wonderful drums. They are often overlooked by drummers stateside. So what we have here is a kit provided to us by Turkish Cymbals USA. So thanks again to those folks for letting me borrow these drums and make some videos with them. We have a 22 by 14 bass drum, 14 by 8 rack tom, 16 by 16 floor tom, and the kit here, which is I believe like mid 60s-ish, is paired with a 14 by 9 heavy rock 9 snare drum. I'm not even holding it right now because it's just too dang big. Let's start with the kit. So what you're looking at here are some beautiful 60s drums, and they sound like it. What's interesting is that the rack tom and the floor tom have a different shell than the kick drum, but they all sound great together. The kick drum has African mahogany, poplar African mahogany shells with I believe I can't remember if the reinforcement rings are beech or maple. And then the shells themselves for the toms are beech interior, and then with the reinforcement rings as well. So, we have seen mahogany drums made in America. We generally also see maple, but we don't see vintage beech American drums. It's a cool tone wood. It does sing in its own interesting way. Coupled with some other special features here that you see on these drums, they are just such a unique set. They are so fun to play. Think about that rack tom size, 14x8. Where the heck are you going to find a 14x8 rack tom anywhere else on a vintage kit? Keith Moon used these a lot. It's just a big boingy drum. It's a lot of fun to play. Beyond the sizes, the hoops are really cool. The hoops are a die-cast hoop, but I believe they call them like root beer barrel or beer barrel hoops, something like that. And the beer barrel hoops are really short, but they're still nice and hefty, and they do produce a nice singing tone. The other thing that I really love about these drums is just aesthetically is the chrome. Even if these drums aren't taken care of well over 50 or 60 years, the chrome is done at the same place that does, I believe, Rolls-Royce chroming. One of the high-end car brands from Britain. So what's really cool about that is it is just really nice quality plating. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful drums here. Aesthetically, another thing I like here are the bass drum claws. They're asymmetrical. Whereas we think of bass drum claws on American drums as sort of these, they have a left and a right side and you kind of turn it at the middle. These only have the one arm on them. So it's kind of a pain in the butt to tune sometimes, but man, do they look slick. They just look so cool. And 4 spurs on the bass drum. It's a 22 and it has 4 spurs. The front ones are different than the back. The back poke out a lot more, and then the front are sort of a little more sleek, so you don't really see them on the stage. I mean, it looks cool. The features on here are also practical for the most part, minus the tension rods. Now, if you look at the tension rods, you'll see that they're slotted. What that means is instead of having a little square that you'd put your drum key on, there's a slot, and you'd have to have a special drum key that sort of has a circle on the outside and then this sort of slot like a screwdriver on the inside to tune them. It kind of stinks, like a Limburger cheese. What I do like, again, getting back to the aesthetics here, is if you look at the lugs, those tension rods are hidden by the lug design. So again, what thought was put into making these drums sound and perform well, the same energy was put into making them look great as well. Wonderful, wonderful drum set. And what I have it paired here with is one of the craziest snare drums you'll probably ever see in your life. This is the Heavy Rock 9. It's a 14x9 inch brass drum that has, I believe, 3 different iterations over the years that Premier made. This is somewhere in the middle, because even though you see the brass shell on the outside, when you look on the inside, there's like a wood liner, and on the top and bottom of that liner, there's like red felt. I don't know what any of this is supposed to do for the tone qualities of the drum. It looks cool, it looks fancy and important, but I don't. This is a drum where they did some stuff. They were always prone to experimenting, and I love that about the brand, but I don't necessarily know what that does for the tonality of the drum. Something other than the interior that's cool on this drum are the hoops. So the hoops are die-cast, but they almost look more like the kind of die-cast hoops that you'd find on a marching snare drum. To me, they really remind me, since they are on a drum set snare drum, they remind me of the Ludwig twin channel die-cast hoops, which are very difficult to find, but they're a very interesting piece of drum history. Let's dive into what these things sound like now. I've been yapping at you for too freaking long. I'm gonna play these drums, just plain old drums. I'll play it with some music, and then we'll wrap up here for you guys. It's an interesting tone, right? I mean, to me, the drums sound very much like John Bonham, because you kind of have to tune them up a little bit, and then the toms sing. The kick drum is just, even though this is a 22 bass drum and Bonham played a 26, this thing booms. And the snare drum, interesting snare. I don't necessarily know that there's a ton of applications for this other than just a loud thwap, but you know what? It does a thing. It does a thing, and it does its one thing really well. Let's hear it in a musical context now. It's really interesting. The toms and the kick, again, the star of the show, tonally. Really, really cool drums. If you have any more info than I know about these drums, please drop it in the comments. And if you find one of these cheap stateside, think about picking it up, because I think you'd have a lot of fun with it. All right, well, thanks for joining me. Food question of the day. What's your favorite potato chip flavor? Now, for me, I like a normal chip, but I like the dark russet potatoes if you can find them. Trader Joe's makes them. There's that Cape Cod brand that makes them. Cape Cod doesn't have as consistent a chip from batch to batch throughout the year, and they tell you why, but I like a brown, dark russet, salted potato chip. I am a plain Jane type of guy. That's my plain Jane type of chip. Eat it or leave it. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.